God. Ugh. I hate myself. There's loathing. There's a certain level of loathing that is always vexing me. That's okay though. That's okay. Because I'm going to reboot this. This is what I'm going to do. But now I've only got 18 minutes for feedback loop, so I do apologize. But my mic wasn't turned on. But again, Brian, thank you for saying that. That was helpful. Even though I noticed it 11 minutes after you said it. Because I was in the middle of talking about Tegel's project. Anyway, welcome back to the feedback loop. Chris Courtney here. We're blasting through this morning on a tight deadline. Right now, we're looking at Tegel's project, and just to catch things up, Tegel had some questions related to the way these drop downs should be displayed, and based on uh, based on the research that we've done on her project from prior days, we know that this get tested with COVID ID site is utilizing this Argon, which is built on top of Bootstrap. It's a React library that's being used. So I am of the mind that there are some styles that are already in play. Are they useful? Is the question. And I really do think that like that appearing to the side is not all that useful. But let's go ahead and widen this out so we'll do the natural action below. Um, I do think that some of what is happening here is good. The fact that it's utilizing space for the separation of the items inside, and it's utilizing hover to help kind of tell you where you're at. I think that's good. That's a good feedback dynamic. When we were also looking at, how do you handle things that are in line? And while I think the information here could be better aligned, mainly coming from the image, like basically just line the image up to where these things all start at the same spot. Um, I do think that this is basically going to be a span. If we come back over here to Tegel's thing, this is basically going to be a span. The question is, when you click on it, does this illuminate, or do you just go straight to the items that are included below? Um, I do think that there's some value in utilizing color. In this case, I'm going to move this out of the way. In this case, I could actually see flipping it around and going darker, and then going uh, lighter. Actually, we'll screen it instead. Well, I don't want to screen it that much. Maybe I'll just maybe I'll put it at normal, and then I'll just pull in. Yeah, I'll just pull in the color that you have. So here I've got a darker background so that it shows up because it's on a purple. And then as I hover, the idea would be that this would move to the appropriate place, and then if I had 10 selected, it would become 10 up here. But I know that how this is going to work is basically it's going to be a span where this is written in line, and then when I select, it gives me a drop down. If I do the drop down, I was just doing it like so, and then I would have this information below, and now I'm moving everything, so I definitely don't want to do that. But I think there's a few options there, Tegel. Same thing happens down here. If you're, this is another inline, but there's no color background. So my suggestion here would be to, do you really need to call that much attention to the drop down in these secondary spaces? I don't necessarily think that you do. I do think that like clicking on this and getting the drop down to appear, that will gain enough attention for people. Um, yeah, thanks, Brian. Brian, you're always so positive. I appreciate that, man. No hating on yourself. It's tough though because I I move around. I'm doing a lot of writing right now, and I move around from place to place, and then I'll set back up my machine to record, and I'll do something where I'll forget I never forget to plug in the camera. It's like I'm super vain, I guess, but then I'll turn around and I'll forget to plug in the mic, and it's just because the mic is shadowed. I can't see that plug as readily. And I think I had it plugged in earlier, and I unplugged it to move like how power was connecting. So, and it's what's so weird is I have a meter that will show when this is not working properly. Like I have a meter. Just look, make sure the meter's running, Chris. That'd be a terrible taxi driver. Anyway, so if it's on a color background, I'd use color. If it's not on a color background, I wouldn't. Okay, and that is how I would approach this. Um, you know, but and again, if you decided that you were going to use colors, I would just make it consistent. Okay. Um, so that's really all I've got there. I'm gonna leave that there. But Tedgel, while I was recording and kind of talking through it earlier, you got the gist of it. I mean, you got the distillation of what I was wanting to talk about. Okay, so we're gonna really quickly take the next 10 minutes and talk about Rebecca's work here. Oh, that's a new project that's coming up for the Leaf. We're gonna shut these down. We're gonna come back, and Rebecca's got and you'll see there is a pure CSS ticker horizontal Lewis Carey's work here that we're taking a look at. One of the questions Rebecca had earlier was about how to have text constantly moving through, and I managed to find this ticker. And one of the key things about any sort of code pen that you look at, or any sort of code that you or find online, it's understanding, well, what the hell's happening. Well, keyframes basically says I want to go from one thing to the next, and you'll notice, so this is going from zeros to negative 100. So it's basically moving, and negative 100 is dragging this. If I was going 100%, it would go the other way. So if I flip this around, and I've got to, let's see, what have I got? I gotta do to, I gotta fork it. Sorry, fork is further down now. So we forked this, and as we go through, if we look at this and we go, oh, hey, it's going to be 100% instead, and then we also have to do it here because this is hello. Okay, we fully broke that. So now let's go minus 100. Oh, actually, let's do it this way. Let's go minus 100 to 0. And now it moves the other way. So minus 100% moves it to the left. 100% moves it to or when you move from minus 100%, it goes back to the right. So that is a key thing to understand about how keyframes works. And I had not tested that prior to this call, so it's like I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. And that's really how I want you to work with new code. Like if you don't understand what the code is doing, I want you to try to look at like, okay, what's really happening here? And it's saying something's going from 0% to 100%. And then begin to work with the numbers or the values that are present to see if you can determine what change is occurring. And if you can determine what change is occurring and you can predict what's going to occur when you make that change, then you understand how that code is functioning. It's like, okay, when I change this value, this event occurs in the manner that I predicted it would. You may not understand what that means, but look at the words. It's like transform. I'm transforming from 100%, from negative 100% to 0. You may wonder, well, what is this property? Translate 3D. Well, that's where I'm just going to suggest that you go through and you go keyframe, translate 3D, and that's going to probably pull up like CSS tricks, or we'll just go to the MD Insight and translate. It repositions an element in 3D space. Okay? And there are a lot of different things that you can do. There are other values here because it moves in 3 dimensions. So if this moves in 3 dimensions, the question here is, oh, why do I have just zeros on the other items? We're really only using 1 dimension, left, right, of the 3 dimensions, which makes me wonder, okay, what happens if I do this? Something crazy is probably going to happen, right? And let's just see what occurs. Oddly enough, nothing happens. Makes you wonder why, or it really makes you wonder what is happening at that particular position. So let's see. So this index is tx. Then ty is so these are moving on vectors. And then tz is the length. So here we have, so here again, this is, in this example, it's just moving horizontally. And I want to see what, okay. So if we want to move it up, like if we want to make it get larger, you would use this 100 pixels. You would use this third element. I don't see an option where they're actually utilizing the second, but I am curious about, can we get this to, and it's not, or at least it's not right away. Yeah. Oh, actually, no, it's not getting any larger. Ultimately, that part of it is not, or maybe it did get larger. Oh, and then I broke it. For our purposes, I think it got larger. I do think that it was getting larger as it was going across, but it's so wide it was hard to see that. But for you, this first bit is what you need to move across, okay? This is a ticker, all right? Tickers are intended to scroll, all right? This is not a carousel. Carousels move one at a time. My problem with what we had discussed was you had this alignment issue on your site, and I'm going to try to come over to your Rebecca Barr design site. You have a position here where want all of your text to line up. The problem is with this ticker idea is that when you get into the responsive mode, you're going to need to constantly rewrite where the starting point is, unless it's constantly moving. And if it's constantly moving, the person on the other end will accept that, oh, this is just kind of moving, and it lines up for a split second every so often, but that's by design. Okay? So by allowing it to constantly move, you remove the issue related to alignment of this constantly moving thing inside of this design, which has a desktop view, has a mobile view, and could become really complicated with this sort of motif. Now, if you want it to have that ticker move, you could probably set the keyframes to like align at a particular position every so often. Um, but I see that as being uh, a lot of lift for very little advantage that's easily breakable by comparison to having it just constantly move. I would suggest that because the word is meant to align, like you want these words to align to the left. I would have it move to the left, because if you have it moved to the right, it never feels like it's lining up. But if you have it moved to the left, then you have the opportunity for it to consistently line up. Also, this is wrapped and it's got a class of ticker, and then the items are in here. So if we said designer, researcher, designer, researcher, potato. Let's just say awesome. And then mom. Okay. And then we flip this back around. This is going to go from 0. And this is 0. And now this is 100%. And this is 100%. And this should begin moving again. It's, oh yeah, never mind. Sorry, we had to go to negative, right? I think that's correct. And now it begins coming across. You can adjust the speed. You also want, like, I think this would work a lot better if there was like a lot of these in here. So ticker item. But that's how you move it on across. Infinite linear, there's padding, so you could tighten up the space between these if you wanted to. So now they're a little tighter together, but you get the idea. All right. And wow, just like that. Let's see here. I'm going to have to come back to the rest of this because I have a 10 o'clock that is waiting on me right now. So I will leave you some notes here, Rebecca, on these other items. I apologize. Technical difficulty bit us today. And let's see here. Looks like... Lisa's got some questions as well. Yeah, the UX audit you're working on, Lisa, I think that you should have those intro slides. Like, here's what we covered. The conclusion slide should be, there's more on the other side of this. If you want to dive into the docs, here's what's available. And then like questions. I would like your conclusion slide should be like slide 4, so that you open up the floor for questions. And then if the questions lead to going into the appendix, then you take them into the appendix. But I would use that as a steering mechanism. So but good question there. I'm happy to see you chime in. And I haven't seen Luigi pop in yet, so until I see Luigi, I'm going to keep piling forward here. So you edited the user text. You need better spacing on UX writing. The CarePoint hero needs to be a little bit smaller. For image needs to be a little bit smaller. So I need you to like change the size of the image. practice. But let's see. Oh, the images for what I learn are broken. That's weird. Yeah, we obviously um, talked about that. So let's take a look at your code really fast. Oh, and there's Luigi. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will come back to this, and I'll probably do a second round. I'll do a second round because there's just a lot that we didn't get to because of the microphone issue. So that's part one of Feedback Loop. I'll be back in about an hour after I sit here and chat with Luigi. So take care, everybody. See ya.